I'm not a stickler for nomenclature. And I think that throughout, I've been using words like lifting, weightlifting, weight training, and bodybuilding almost interchangeably. But there are limitations and problems with all of these words, and probably that's the reason for flitting between them without much consistency. And that oscillation between the terms says much about how imprecise is the sport that we're talking about. Lifting is obviously the plainest description, though it's somewhat vague and mechanical, because in most circumstances the word lifting is applied to hefting objects for practical purposes rather than a sport or a health program. When we add the word weight, so weightlifting, it perhaps clarifies that we go around looking for weights to lift. It already signals a kind of deliberateness about the lifting that isn't for the sake of a practical purpose. For that reason, I really like the word weight training. That indicates exercise, yet more clearly, we're using weights to train. That is, to improve or perfect some kind of skill or ability. The only problem with weight training is that training possibly implies that you're training for something else. If I'm training to be an electrician, presumably one day I'll qualify and be an electrician. If you do football training, it doesn't mean playing football, though it might entail some of that, but rather doing drill and getting practiced and fit for future matches. There's always an implication with training that you're building up to something beyond the training for which the training is preparation. So, in that sense, I wouldn't say that weight training is a perfect match for what we mean, because you aren't really preparing for anything beyond rehearsing the same thing from yesterday but for tomorrow. Unless you can see some progress over a period, in which case I suppose you could say that each day constitutes training for the next. But gee, the argument is already starting to sound a bit Jesuitical. It's still probably the best word in our vocabulary to describe what we're doing, but it has an instrumental resonance that points up the fact that we don't necessarily have a purpose that typically belongs to a sport with its structure of competitive events and ambitions of winning.